The blizzard came down like the wrath of God. John Calloway bolted the barn door against the wind, his breath clouding in the lantern light. Christmas Eve. And the temperature had dropped so low the nails in the wood groaned. He was turning back toward the house when he heard a faint scratching at the barn door. Probably a coyote, he thought, or the wind playing tricks. But the scratching came again, desperate, human. He threw open the door. A small shape tumbled inward and collapsed at his feet, a child, no more than 10 years old, her lips blue, her thin dress frozen stiff. She clutched a torn flour sack against her chest like it held the last piece of her soul. "Lord have mercy," John whispered. He scooped her up light as kindling and ran through the snow to his cabin. Inside, he stripped off her frozen clothes with shaking hands, wrapped her in every blanket he owned, and laid her by the roaring fire. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale as death. John had been alone for 5 winters, hadn't touched another living soul in all that time. Now his hands trembled as he rubbed warmth back into her tiny fingers. She stirred, delirious. "Mama, don't let them. They'll find me." "You're safe," John said, his voice cracking. "I promise." Her eyes fluttered open dark, wild with fear, then closed again. In her hand, frozen to her palm, was a small brass locket. John pried it loose gently, set it by the fire to thaw. He sat back on his heels, staring at her. On the mantel above the fireplace sat a carved wooden horse, crude but lovingly made. He'd carved it for his daughter Sarah, years ago, before the fever took her, before his wife Rebecca died bringing her into the world. The blizzard screamed outside. The girl shivered in her sleep. John looked at the toy horse, then back at the child. "I won't fail again," he whispered to the darkness. Morning came quiet and cold. John woke slumped in his chair, neck stiff. The fire had burned low. The girl was awake, sitting upright in the blankets, her eyes scanning the room like a cornered animal searching for exits. "Easy now," John said, keeping his voice soft. "You're safe here." She didn't speak, just watched him, calculating. He moved slowly to the stove, ladled porridge into a wooden bowl, set it on the table. "You need to eat." She didn't move. John took the carved horse from the mantel, set it beside the bowl. "My daughter liked horses," he said quietly. "Her name was Sarah." The girl's eyes flicked to the toy. She reached out, hesitated, then touched it with one finger. Something in her face softened. She ate. John waited until she'd finished before speaking again. "What's your name?" "Child, Emma," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, like she hadn't used it in a long time. "I'm John Calloway." She nodded. Then, in fragments, the story came out. Her mother had died 3 months ago. Fever. Her uncle came to take care of her, but he didn't. He sold her to a work crew that traveled the territories, leasing out children to railroads and mines. She'd been locked in a wagon, beaten when she cried, fed scraps. She'd escaped 2 nights ago when they stopped for Christmas supplies. "My uncle." Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "He finds people. He'll come." John's jaw tightened. "Then he'll find me first." Emma stared at him, disbelieving. "You don't know him. Don't need to." Through the frosted window, movement caught John's eye. 3 riders on the distant ridge, dark shapes against the white. Emma saw them too. Her whole body went rigid. The riders paused, scanning the valley. Then they moved on, disappearing into the trees. Emma exhaled, trembling. John stood, walked to the wall, and lifted his rifle from its pegs. He checked the chamber, set it by the door. "No one's taking you anywhere," he said. For the first time, Emma's eyes held something other than fear, hope, fragile as glass. But there, 3 days passed. The blizzard broke. The world outside turned bright and still. John chopped firewood in the yard while Emma fed the chickens small tasks. But she did them without being asked. She was stronger now. Color had returned to her cheeks. He swung the axe, and a memory struck him like a fist. Rebecca, screaming in the bed, blood everywhere. The midwife shaking her head, his newborn daughter wailing in his arms while his wife's breath stopped. 5 years of joy with Sarah, 5 years of watching her grow wild and bright, a little flame in the wilderness. Then the winter pneumonia, her small body shivering under blankets, her fevered whispers. The morning he woke and she was cold. He'd buried them both on the hill overlooking the valley, and he'd buried himself with them. Until 3 nights ago. The sound of hoofbeats pulled him back. Martha Reeves, the widow from the neighboring ranch, rode up leading a pack mule. She was 60, tough as jerky, and the closest thing John had to a friend. "Brought you Christmas bread," Martha said, dismounting. Then she saw Emma in the yard. Her eyebrows rose. "Oh, her name's Emma. She needed help." Martha studied the girl, then John, then nodded slowly. "People are going to talk. Let them. I mean it. John. A bachelor with a strange girl preacher Hawthorne won't like it. Some folks will think the worst." John's expression hardened. "Let them think what they want." Martha sighed. "You're a stubborn fool. But you're a good fool." She handed him the bread, tipped her hat to Emma, and rode off. That afternoon, John saddled his horse. Emma watched from the doorway, anxious. "I'll be back by dark," he said. "Stay inside. Keep the rifle close." He rode to town a 2-hour trip through snow. At the general store, he bought Emma a winter coat, boots, wool stockings, and hair ribbons. The mercantile owner, a sour man named Pritchard, stared at him with open suspicion. "Buying girls' clothes now, Calloway. That a problem?" Pritchard's lip curled. "Just wondering what the preacher will say." John paid in silence, gathered his purchases, and turned to leave. Then he saw it a wanted poster tacked to the wall by the door. "Reward information on runaway children from Granger Work Crew. Contact Samuel Granger, county agent." The name hit him like a stone. Samuel Granger, Emma's uncle. John tore the poster down, crumpled it, and walked out. When he got home, Emma tried on the coat. It was too big, but she pulled it tight around herself, buried her face in the collar. When she looked up, her eyes were wet. "No one ever—" She couldn't finish. John knelt so they were eye to eye. "You're my responsibility now, Emma. Understand?" She nodded, then threw her thin arms around his neck. John closed his eyes, held her, and felt something inside him, something frozen for 5 long years, begin to thaw. January settled over the ranch like a long, cold sigh. But inside the cabin, warmth grew. John taught Emma to read using Rebecca's old Bible. She was quick, hungry for words the way some children were for candy. At night, by lamplight, she'd read aloud while John mended harness or sharpened tools. Her voice filled the silence he'd lived in for so long. One evening, she read the story of Joseph sold into slavery, abandoned, yet rising to save his family. "Do you think that's true?" Emma asked. "That bad things can turn good?" John looked at her. "I'm starting to—" She tried to bake biscuits one afternoon and burned them black. They both laughed until their sides heard a sound so foreign in that cabin it felt like a miracle. Outside, the first real snow of the new year fell soft and thick. Emma had never played in snow, not really. She'd been too busy surviving. John showed her how to make a snowball. She hurled it at him. He ducked, laughing, and threw one back. They fought like children until they were both soaked and breathless. Collapsing in the drifts, Emma stared up at the sky, snowflakes catching in her eyelashes. Sarah would have liked this, she said softly. John's throat tightened. Yeah, she would have liked you too. But peace never lasts. That evening, Preacher Hawthorne arrived on a black mare, his face a mask of pious concern. He accepted John's offer of coffee but didn't drink it. "The Lord's work brings me here, Brother Calloway," Hawthorne said, his eyes sliding to Emma. "I hear you've taken in a child, a noble act. But one wonders about propriety. She needed help." Of course. But where is her family? Surely there are proper guardians' church homes, respectable women who could care for her." John's voice went flat. "She's staying here." Hawthorne's smile thinned. "I only mean to protect her reputation, and yours." He stood, adjusting his hat. "The law has a say in these matters. John. Best remember that." After he left, Emma had nightmares. She woke screaming, thrashing in her blankets. "Don't lock me in! Please don't lock me in the wagon!" John held her until the shaking stopped, whispering promises he prayed he could keep. The next morning, Emma hung a drawing on the cabin wall, a crude sketch of the cabin, smoke rising from the chimney, 2 stick figures standing in the doorway. John touched it gently. The cabin wasn't just shelter anymore. It was home. Mid-February. A fever took Emma in the night. John spent 2 days nursing her cold cloths, willow bark tea, prayers he wasn't sure anyone heard. On the 3rd night, the fever broke, and with it, so did Emma's careful silence. She talked in fragments, delirious but honest. The full story spilled out. Her uncle, Samuel Granger, had inherited legal guardianship when her mother died. He'd always been cruel, but now he was methodical. He sold children Emma and a dozen others to labor crews, 50 cents a day per child. Easy money. Emma had been beaten for crying, starved for speaking out of turn, locked in a wagon at night so she wouldn't run. "He owns me," she whispered, her eyes glassy. "The law says so, papers and everything." John felt rage so pure it scared him. He paced the cabin, fists clenched, trying to breathe. Legal guardianship. That meant the law was on Granger's side. John had no claim, no rights. He was just a stranger who'd taken in a runaway. By morning, Emma was lucid again. Martha arrived with medicine and grim news. "There's a petition going around town," Martha said quietly. "Some folks want the sheriff to investigate. They're saying Emma should be in proper care." "Whose idea?" "Hawthorne started it. But some decent people signed too. They think they're helping." Emma, pale and weak, sat up. "I should go, before they make trouble for you." John knelt beside her. Fierce. "You're not going anywhere." "But you're my daughter now." "I don't care what any paper says." Emma's eyes filled. "You mean that every word?" Martha squeezed John's shoulder. "The law can be wrong, John, and sometimes good men have to break it." 2 days later, a letter arrived, official county seal. John read it twice, his hands shaking. Samuel Granger had filed a legal claim. A hearing was set for April, 8 weeks away. The noose was tightening. March came early, warm and treacherous. John and Emma went to town for garden seeds, a tentative hope for spring. Emma had grown bolder, walking beside him with her head up, no longer flinching at every shadow. They were at the Mercantile when the commotion started. Sheriff Cobb rode up with 2 men, a clerk in a black suit, and a 3rd man, well-dressed, with cold eyes and a politician's smile. Samuel Granger. "That's him," Emma whispered, her face draining of color. Granger dismounted, dusted off his coat, and approached with the clerk. "Sheriff, that's my niece, Emma Granger. I've been searching for months." John stepped between them. "She's not going anywhere." "Mr. Calloway," the clerk said smoothly, producing a document. Mr. Granger is the legal guardian. This is an emergency writ from Judge Holloway. We're authorized to take the child into custody immediately. She's safe with me." Granger's smile never wavered. "I'm sure you meant well, but Emma belongs with family. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." A crowd had gathered, townspeople watching, whispering. Some faces sympathetic, none intervening. Emma grabbed John's arm. "Don't let him, please." "It's the law, John," Sheriff Cobb said quietly. He looked genuinely sorry. "I got no choice." John lunged forward. The deputy caught him, wrestled him to the ground. Emma screamed, clawed at Granger as he grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to leave bruises. "No, John, help me." Granger threw her into the back of a wagon, climbed in after her. The wagon lurched forward. John struggled, shouting her name, but the deputy held him down. The last thing he saw was Emma's face pressed against the wagon's bars, her hand reaching out. Then she was gone. John collapsed in the muddy street, gasping. Martha helped him up, but he barely felt it. The crowd dispersed, ashamed, silent. He rode home alone. The cabin was empty. Emma's drawing still hung on the wall. Her coat was draped over the chair. The fire had gone out. John sat in the dark and didn't move. Night swallowed the cabin whole. John sat with a bottle of whiskey on the table. He didn't drink it. Just stared at Sarah's grave marker through the window, visible in the moonlight. "I lose everyone," he whispered. "Everyone I love." He thought about saddling his horse and riding away, disappearing into the mountains where no one would ever find him. The door burst open. Martha stood there, soaked from the rain, furious. "Get up." "Martha." "I said get up." She grabbed his arm, hauled him to his feet. "That man left bruises on her. John, I saw them. So did half the town. You think this is over? You think Emma's given up on you?" "The law. Damn the law." Martha's voice cracked. "The law said my husband could beat me, and no one did a thing until he drank himself to death. The law can be wrong. John, but you can be right." John stared at her. Something in him shifted. "What do I do? You fight, and we fight with you." By dawn, Martha had rallied them. The mercantile owner's son, he'd worked a Granger crew years ago, barely escaped alive. Preacher Hawthorne. Conscience finally stirred, willing to testify about rumors of abuse he'd ignored. A dozen townspeople who'd seen the bruises. The terror in Emma's eyes. John rode from house to house, demanding they choose. Will you stand for what's right, or hide behind what's legal, one by one? They signed their names. Testimonies, affidavits, witnesses. By afternoon, John had a plan. He lit the fire in his cabin, loaded his rifle, pinned Emma's drawing back on the wall. "I'm coming," he said to the empty room. And he meant it. Granger's work camp was 15 miles east, a squalid collection of tents and wagons in a muddy clearing. Children moved like ghosts in the background, silent and hollow-eyed. John rode in alone. Samuel Granger emerged from the largest tent, smiling that politician's smile. "Mr. Calloway, trespassing now, are we—" "Give her back." "She's mine by law." Granger pulled a pistol from his belt, casual as lighting a cigar. "And you're about to be dead by self-defense." John didn't move. "Go ahead. Shoot an unarmed man in front of witnesses." Granger's smile faltered. "What witnesses?" "Hoofbeats." A dozen riders emerged from the trees. Martha, Sheriff Cobb, Preacher Hawthorne, townspeople. They surrounded the camp, silent and grim. Cobb dismounted, holding a sheaf of papers. "Samuel Granger, I've got signed testimonies from 8 people who worked your crews. Child cruelty, fraud, unlawful imprisonment. That's absurd. And I've got a dozen witnesses who saw you bruise that girl yesterday. From the largest wagon, a small voice rose. He's lying. Emma appeared, climbing down from the locked wagon, bruised but unbroken. She walked forward, stood in front of Granger, and looked him in the eye. He beat us, starved us, sold us like cattle. Her voice rang clear. And I'm not the only one. Behind her, other children stepped forward. A boy with a scarred back, a girl missing 2 fingers. All of them silent for so long, finally finding their voices. Granger's face twisted. She's mine. Not anymore, Cobb said, and clamped irons on his wrists. Emma ran. John caught her, knelt, held her tight. She was shaking, but not with fear, with relief, with vindication. I knew you'd come, she whispered. John pulled the toy horse from his coat pocket. He'd brought it for her. She took it, clutched it to her chest, and cried. Martha smiled. The townspeople quietly, solemnly, began helping the other children. Justice. Finally, spring came soft and sure. By late April, the snow was gone, replaced by wildflowers and new grass. Emma's garden, the one she'd planted with shaking hands back in March, bloomed in neat rows. Tomatoes, beans, squash. She knelt in the dirt, humming while she worked. John repaired the fence nearby, sneaking glances at her. Still couldn't quite believe she was real, that she was staying. The legal papers had come through 2 weeks ago. Guardianship granted. Samuel Granger sentenced to 10 years. Emma had chosen to take John's last name, Emma Calloway. She'd cried when the judge announced it. So had John. That afternoon, they walked to the hill overlooking the valley. Sarah's grave was there, and Rebecca's, side by side under the cottonwood. Emma knelt, placed a handful of wildflowers on the stones. I'll take care of him, Sarah, she whispered. I promise. John watched from a distance, throat tight. For the first time in 5 years, he felt something other than grief when he looked at those graves. He felt peace. That evening, Martha joined them for supper. She'd been coming by more often lately. Emma approved, had even started hinting, not so subtly, that John should quit being a fool and ask Miss Martha to stay for breakfast sometime. John blushed. Martha laughed. Emma grinned like she'd won something. After Martha left, John and Emma sat on the porch, watching the sun set. Emma wore her mother's locket, polished now, gleaming. The toy horse sat on the porch rail between them. Do you think Mama and Sarah are together? Emma asked. Watching us? John considered. I'd like to believe that. Me too. The sky turned gold, then pink, then deep blue. Inside, the fire glowed warm, the garden bloomed, the world, for the first time in a long time, felt whole. Emma leaned against John's shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For not giving up. On me. On you. John closed his eyes. Thank you for the same. They sat in comfortable silence as stars appeared. One by one, in the vast Montana sky, 2 broken souls who'd found each other in a blizzard, who'd fought the world to stay together, who'd learned that love, however hard won, could bloom again. The winter had been long, the battle brutal, but spring had come, and with it, the promise of home.